The stranger I nearly killed with my truck turned out to be a police officer. Out of all the ways my weekend was supposed to go, this was not the way I wanted it to go. The last thing I wanted was to end up in a jail cell, but it looked like that was my fate. When a person jumped out of nowhere, I screamed and then swore. The Italian part of me came out as the reality of how I was screwed went through my mind. How stupid of me to be going full speed at 2 a.m. in the morning with no regard for the fact that I wasn't the only one in the world. Now, it was just me and the person I had possibly killed. I got out of the truck and headed to the front. I closed my eyes as I made my way there, imagining what I was going to find. When I opened them, I saw that a man was lying there, unconscious. Quickly, I checked his pulse and realized that he was still alive. Without another thought, I hoisted him up and put him into my truck. Next, I hit the gas and headed home. My heart was pounding loudly. The only thing going through my head was the fact that I had to take him home. I could not take him to the hospital. I would be done for. Several minutes later, I pulled into the driveway. I realized that his eyes were now open, but he seemed out of it. "Sir, you've just been in an accident, but you are okay. I'm going to take you into my house right now and fix you up, okay?" I said as calmly as I could. He let out an incoherent sound, which I took to be his agreement. Without hesitation, I made my way over to his side of the truck. Since he was now half awake, it was easier to get him into the house. Once he was in the house, my instincts took over. I quickly cleaned him up, checked for some injuries, and then bandaged him up. Throughout all of this, I was able to determine that his injuries were not that bad. It could have been worse, but luckily he just had some scrapes. That is what I got for being so reckless, running someone over with my truck. I had gotten a rare 2 days off work and decided to make the most of it. I spent the day at home making my food for the week and reading. At about 8 p.m. in the evening, when I was bored with nothing to do, I got a call from my friend Steven. He was offering me a last-minute spot in his D&D campaign. On a whim, I decided to go, even if it was being held about 2 hours out of town. I should have turned around when I was informed that I had a last-minute shift on Saturday, but I did not. I figured I could stay for a few hours, get back home, and nap till the afternoon. It was one of the best campaigns of my life. The hours passed by as we got lost in the lands of wizards, goblins, castles, and quests. Soon I found myself regretting that choice as I realized that it was getting very late. When I was heading home, I noticed that the roads were quiet. This was not strange at all for me. The town was very sleepy. No one went out past midnight. I took full advantage of this and blasted loud music. I slowly began to increase my speed. With time, I was flying out. Unfortunately, being caught up in this euphoria led to me not seeing the man who jumped out in front of my truck. Now I was sitting here, looking at him. As I took a look at him, I made an interesting observation which I had failed to make earlier when I was panicking. This man was hot as hell. He had curly dark hair, a very defined jaw, and some very well-developed muscles. Upon further observation, I realized that he was actually pretty tall. I sighed. "Why did he have to be so ridiculously hot?" I exclaimed out loud as I adjusted myself so that I could see him better. I felt my heart doing that thing it did when I saw someone hot, and I just knew it was going to be a long night. I was a sucker for very good-looking guys. I could stare at them all day and not get bored. All my life, I had always stared, and that was enough for a while. From then, I progressed to fantasizing. Some would call me delusional, but I was proudly delusional. I drifted off into a daydream about me and this stranger as I sat there. I imagined him waking up and discovering me. He would be intrigued by my nerdy appearance, in awe over the way I took care of him, and fall for me. That would be the most perfect start to the fairy tale. I felt a smile spread on my lips as I continued to imagine this interesting love story. Slowly, I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, I was woken up by a smooth, velvety voice. "Where am I? Who are you?" someone said. I turned over to further savor the sleep, but screamed as I hit the floor. Someone groaned. I opened my eyes only to be faced by Boots. I looked up and got lost in chocolate eyes. The man's brow furrowed as he looked at me. I smiled innocently, still half asleep. "You are awake! Hi, I am JB. Would you like some coffee?" I chirped as I offered him a hand to help me up. He just scoffed and moved further back. His eyes darted back and forth around the bedroom and at me. "Who the hell are you?" he muttered gruffly as he glared at me. I quickly stood up and tried my hardest to explain what happened the previous night. As I spoke, he regarded me with the most intense focus. He seemed to be making a mental note of everything that I told him. "Oh, I see. I remember that I asked you to stop since you were going too fast. But what did you do? Do you know how dangerous it is to be going so fast at that time?" he scolded me. All I could do was sit there and swoon in my head. His gruffness was supposed to be scaring me, but I was just focused on how attractive he was. He had a habit of flexing his one hand when he got upset, and it was the coolest thing ever. I am so sorry. I understand if you want to press charges. It was so dark, and I didn't see. I tried to explain myself. I realized the gravity of this situation the more he spoke. I was supposed to be focused on how much trouble I was in, but I could not stop admiring him. He gave me a look. A long, hard look for a long minute. God, why was everything long? Why did you not take me to the hospital? Are you even qualified to be patching people up? He inquired then, his voice still as gruff. His gaze was so intense that I found myself looking down in shame. He was right. I should have gone to the hospital, but I could not. Trust me, it was better for both of us if I treated you at home. Well, maybe better for me, I admitted bashfully as I tried to make my most innocent face. And because I have experience, a tad bit of it, in medical, I mean. Well, it does not matter how innocent you look. You ran over a police officer and did not call the cops or an ambulance. I should arrest you right now. His mouth became a thin line. I was on my knees within seconds. I am so sorry. It was dumb of me. I could lose my job. Please do not arrest me. I rambled on, begging for him to spare me. I could feel tears going down my cheeks within seconds. Suddenly, he placed a hand on my chin and made me look up. I have urgent business to attend to right now. I will deal with you later, he said dismissively, and then he took his jacket. He was out of the door before I could compose myself. I fell onto the sofa in relief, unsure whether it was because of my prolonged punishment or the way he lifted my chin. Trust me to think everything was so hot when I was deep in trouble. Almost on cue, I got a message from my supervisor asking me where the hell I was. I groaned as I realized that I had work starting soon. Immediately, I hopped into the shower and took a bath. Monday. JB, there is someone here to see you, my coworker Clive informed me. I nodded and made my way over to the front. My heart stopped when I saw the hot cop speaking to my manager. I was already on my second warning. This was going to make things worse, especially since I hit him with the work truck. Ah, there you are. Officer Park was just here looking for you, my manager said jovially as I made my way to the two of them. I did not let that fool me. He had a naturally cheery attitude, which usually masked his disappointment. I smiled tightly and turned to the officer. Good to see you again, sir. How may I help you? I gulped nervously. I called your number, but you did not respond. Would you like to come to my car for a chat? He did not even wait for me to respond before leading the way. I got into the car and waited with bated breath for him to tell me that I was in a lot of trouble. Were you intoxicated on the day? He asked as he took out a notepad. I was not. I was on the way home from a D&D campaign. The music was loud and I was in the zone. I'm sorry for what happened, sir. I sighed as I looked down shamefully. I could not believe I was here. Why did you not take me to the hospital? He then asked me. I used to work in ER a couple years ago. I have first aid experience. I did not want to go to the hospital because I was afraid of getting in trouble with the law. Plus, I had a work car. I'm already on thin ice with my supervisor right now, I explained, desperately hoping that he would let me go. He gave me a look, and if I wasn't in trouble, I would have found that hot and kind. He looked like a man who knew how to be kind. I'm not going to arrest you yet. This is a sensitive matter. Do not leave town for now. I also need a working number from you. The number I found on the database does not work, he explained to me carefully. Of course, I complied and then went back to work. I couldn't focus for the rest of the shift. I was too nervous to even think. At least, my manager knew nothing, but I knew it was only a matter of time. About 3 days later. I was feeling sluggish, so I decided to head to my favorite coffee shop. It had been 3 days since I saw Officer Park, and I was stressed. Speaking of the devil, guess who was standing there, waiting to order? The one and only cop I was trying to avoid. I made myself as tiny as possible, and then waited for my turn. Morning, sir. What can I get you on this fine day? The barista asked. Get me an Americano, extra strong, he replied gruffly. Oh, an extra strong Americano for a strong man of the law, she giggled, obviously falling for his enchanting looks. She carried on trying to flirt with him, but he looked positively bored. I felt both offended on her behalf and delighted on my own for his lack of interest in her. It was a baffling feeling. There you go, Zade. I assumed she was handing him the coffee as she said this. You put a paper on top of my coffee. What is the significance? I heard him asking. My nosiness led me to leaning to the side to catch what was happening. The girl blushed as she took back the phone number she tried to sneak him. Zade turned to make his way back down the line. I did not get my head out of the way quickly enough. He saw me, and then he made a weird face before walking past me. He was definitely going to be adding more years to my sentence after this. 2 days later. 2 days later, I was waiting for my friend to call me. He was supposed to be coming over for some chill time. I decided to freshen up as I waited for him. As I was doing so, I sang very loudly, having a mini concert. After showering, I made my way back to the living room where I left my phone. "You should not leave your door unlocked while you're in the shower. You're lucky that it's just me who entered," a deep voice said. I squeaked and jumped, and I felt my towel slipping. "Oh no!" I turned around and caught Zade's gaze. His eyes were as wide as saucers. That was the first time I had seen him so shocked. Without another word, I picked up my towel and composed myself. Good evening to you, Zade. You told me that you would be in contact." "Well, if you're going to put me in handcuffs, at least allow me to get dressed first," I smirked. Redness spread across his cheeks and my heart jumped with joy. Had I made the hardcore officer blush? Every time I ran into him at the coffee shop, he was stoic and professional. Now he looked deeply uncomfortable, and I found it funny. "I guess next time I shouldn't, let myself into someone's house without permission." He cleared his throat. "I don't mind you popping by. I'm curious about my fate after all. And besides, I'm not afraid about getting robbed when there are such capable officers as yourself." I shrugged as I looked at his biceps. He coughed out of the blue. Put some clothes on, then we can talk." He finally managed to get out. I smirked as I made it over to my room. I did not know where this sassy side of me came from, but I was loving it. I got dressed and went back into the living room. "I will be brief. You were lucky because the stop sign was supposed to have been replaced ages ago. It has been causing issues for the past few weeks. You are going to be getting a fine for speeding, though," he said, and then stood up. "Wait, am I not in trouble for running you over?" I asked. "I decided to let you go. I had just a few bruises. Besides, you would not survive a night in jail," he responded nonchalantly. "Why?" I tried to make myself seem taller and stronger. Suddenly, something in his expression changed. He smirked as he touched my cheek. "You are way too pretty for jail." A tiny smile danced on his lips. I breathed in quite deeply when he said that. "Not if I have you to protect me," I smirked. My hand left my side and wandered to his bicep. He did not push it off. He regarded me with such tension that I felt I would combust right in front of him. Suddenly, he pushed me back into the wall. Gosh, I was cornered, and I was loving it. "Take care of yourself, Jamie, because next time I will not be so nice. You do not want to end up in cuffs." His voice sounded dangerously low. I heard the threat loud and clear. I should have told him what he wanted to hear, but I foolishly said, "Don't threaten me with a good time." He let me go immediately. "You must be such a headache for your boyfriend." "I'll see you around," he groaned. And then he was out of there, so fast. I leaned against the wall and sighed. I needed a very, very cold glass of water after that. A week later. It was a week after I was let off the hook, and I could not stop thinking about Zade and the exchange we had in my house. I felt flustered every time I thought of it. I was not going mad. There was an instant attraction there. He called me cute. He did not strike me as someone who went around calling people cute. I had an effect on him, and I needed to act quickly before he forgot me. I was sure that he was surrounded by many hot people every day. I needed to find a way to stand out. And that was why I was at the police station with an Americano in my hand. "Hi, can I please speak to Officer Zade?" I smiled at the receptionist. She narrowed her eyes at me, but ended up calling him. "He will be down in a second," she told me. I thanked her and waited. Sure enough, Zade made his way to me. I smiled when I saw him and handed him the coffee. "What's going on, Jamie? Are you okay?" he asked as his brow furrowed. Was he actually concerned about me? How cute. "I'd like to speak to you. Privately." I got to the point. He nodded and gestured for me to follow him. We entered a room and he told me to sit down. "You have not been at the coffee shop lately," I observed as I sat down. "I have not. What do you want?" He sighed heavily as he sat down across from me. "Running away from the barista? She is cute, though." I probed further, enjoying this too much. A smirk quickly appeared on his face and then it returned to normal. "We both know she is, not my type," Zade pointed out. I smirked, getting the confirmation I needed to do what I was about to do next. "Okay, I see. I came here because I needed to ask about the law." I got to the gist of it. So then I asked him some stupid question I made up, asking what would happen to someone who stole my mail. Of course. That makes so much sense. So I would need proof?" I repeated for the second time. He looked at me as if I was not being serious, and my heart pounded slightly. I was going to get in so much trouble when he realized what was going on. I loved flirting with danger, and he was making it too easy for me.
What is it that you want from me? You are clearly here under false pretenses.
He sighed as he looked at me with the most tired expression. I felt a bit bad for coming here under false pretenses and bothering him like that. Okay, I am sorry for troubling you. I wanted to know if you wanted to go out to lunch sometime, I asked bravely. All of the playfulness was gone, and I was suddenly very nervous.
I cannot at the moment. I have to go. You can see yourself out.
His entire demeanor changed. I was confused and slightly hurt for putting myself out there so openly only for him to reject me like that. I guess he had seemed like such an enigma that I had put it upon myself to crack him. He was not an enigma. He was just uninterested. I smiled at him one last time, and then I left. I did not allow my smile to falter until I got into my car. 2 weeks later. 2 weeks after my incredibly embarrassing letdown, I was trying my hardest to be cheery. I was at work, texting some friends and waiting for a customer to arrive. I had their order ready, and they just needed to collect it. After that, I had to go home and make some food. Next would be the monotony of my life before I fell asleep in a cold and empty bed. Such was life. I ended up putting some music on and zoning out for the rest of the shift. The customer finally came, and I locked up. As I was locking up, someone pushed me onto the door. I then heard a very deep voice say,
"You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law."
My breath caught when I realized that it was Zade. But I had been good. I had done nothing illegal since the accident. Also, why was he the cop I ran into the most? It was like he had been assigned to me. What did I do now? I just want to get home, Zade, I groaned.
Just get in my car,
he said. I felt his cuff settle into place, and he took me to the car. He did not say a word as we drove. For once, I had nothing to say. All I could do was panic. After a while, he parked at the bowling alley. This is not the police station, I stated the obvious while glancing at him. He had the most wickedly charming smile on his face.
It is not. It is our date.
This was just a prank to get back at you that time you came to my workplace lying about needing legal help. He chuckled. It was my first time hearing his laugh, and it was very infectious. Very funny. Now remove the handcuffs, I reminded him sheepishly. He grinned at me and complied. After taking them off, we walked into the bowling alley. I've not been here in a while. I like bowling, I confessed.
I know. I looked into you. Sorry if I came off as uninterested in the beginning. I am very careful about who I date. I had to find out more about you first,
he confessed. Oh, so he was considering dating me. Don't worry, I looked into you too, but only because you are too good to be true, I smirked. Having gotten that out of our chests, we decided to go bowling. As we did so, the conversation flowed nicely. There was some banter and flirting, which I enjoyed a lot. He was so much more interesting than I had initially thought. As the evening wore on, I peeled back every layer. Later that evening, I knocked over all of my pins with one try. I jumped up and down with joy while laughing. He offered me a high five, which I gladly took. At that very moment, there was a rumbling that sounded very much like an earthquake. He looked down at my tummy and laughed.
Come on, Jamie, we have to feed you.
He took my hand and dragged me to the food court, which was not so far.
I feel like something spicy. What do you think?
He asked. I did not like spicy food, but I wanted to impress him. If I chose food that was not spicy, then he would think I was boring. I put on my best face and said, the spicier the better. 30 minutes later. It was half an hour later and we were in the middle of eating. He was eating, but I was struggling to get another morsel in. I could feel myself sweating due to all of the heat. I tried my hardest to keep my composure, but I was struggling. Would you like some more water? The waitress asked when she came around.
Yes, please,
the both of us chirped. We looked at each other for the first time since sitting down. His face was red, and I could practically see steam coming out of his ears. Zade,
Jamie.
We called to each other at the same time and then kept quiet. After a second, we burst out laughing. The waitress laughed with us, then went to go get water. What did you order spicy food for? I asked as I fanned my face.
I thought you liked spicy food. You seemed more interesting than me.
He shrugged as his eyes twinkled. I could not help the smile that came over my face when he said this. I prefer sweet or savory things. Anything too hot makes my ears burn, I revealed. It looked like we had one thing in common at least. We ordered a very sweet dessert and then called it a night. He drove me over to my house and then parked. I'll pick you up tomorrow and drop you off at work, he told me. I nodded and thanked him for giving me a ride home.
No need.
I really enjoyed this date, he smiled warmly. I wanted to kiss him, but I was too nervous. I looked at his lips and felt my anxiety skyrocket. As he leaned in, I heard the click of the door. I had unknowingly opened it. The sound made him withdraw and laugh nervously. See ya, I chimed as I scurried out of there. I could not sleep as I played the whole evening over and over in my head. It was perfect. Not only was he physically attractive, but he was also very funny and relatable. I saw a new side of him on that date that I hope to see soon. A week later. It was a week later, and I had not heard a peep from Zade. He picked me up the day after our date and dropped me off at work. It was a pretty normal ride, but we still did not kiss. He was already in a hurry, so he told me he would text me later. He did text me that evening. He told me he enjoyed the date and hoped to do it again soon. I said the same, and he read my message. Since I was new to this and had no idea what to do next, I called my best friend, Steve, for advice. Steve answered the phone immediately. Okay, so remember the hot cop? We went on a date. I started the long tale. Wait, you went on a date and you didn't tell me? He said, disapprovingly. Of course, I apologized profusely, as one does for denying their best friend, T. Okay, fine, I forgive you. Now tell me everything, he screeched excitedly. We spent the next hour dissecting my date, and by the end of it, I knew what to do. Steve made me see that I did not take the initiative to see the guy again, so he must have been waiting on me. I could see where he was coming from with that, so I came up with a plan. 2 days later. I waited for Zade with bated breath, not sure what to even do with myself because I was so nervous. I was waiting for 5 minutes when he pitched up. I went over, hugged him, and said, Hi, it is so good to see you again. You can come in and sit over here with me. I made a bit of everything because I'm not sure what kind of food you like. I'm so glad to see you too. I was unsure if you wanted to see me again. He looked down. I lifted his chin, just as he had done that morning so many weeks ago. Of course I did. I didn't know how to go about it because it was my first date, I confessed shyly.
Oh, well now it all makes sense.
Was it your first kiss too? He inquired gently. I nodded, shamefully. Yep, I was 21 and I had never been kissed.
Well, now I see why you did not kiss me.
I respect that. It has to be special.
Come on, let's enjoy this picnic that you set up for us,
he said warmly. I breathed a sigh of relief and instantly felt safe. I liked how he did not pressure me. It helped me feel so at ease. Even though I was the one who asked him out, I had little to no experience with romance. Asking him out had been on a whim, but it worked out so well. I felt very happy on our second date. We told each other stories about our childhood, laughed and basked in happiness. Time passed as we were safely inside our little bubble. Soon, I noticed that the sun was setting. The golden glow reflected within his chocolate eyes, and I was struck. It is difficult to explain, but that moment felt right. So I seized it. I slowly moved closer to him as he did the same. Our lips met at the perfect moment, and I got my first kiss. I was so glad that I waited to have it. He was so gentle as he expertly expressed his affection to me. His soft lips were a perfect contrast to his hard exterior. I reveled in that moment for as long as I could, and then he pulled away. I did not say anything for a moment. Almost immediately, he placed a hand on my cheek and softly breathed. Are you okay? He asked, cautiously. I beamed until my cheeks hurt. I am very okay. Yep, that was a kiss worth waiting for. Conclusion. We went on a few more dates before making everything official. I really enjoyed getting to know more about him during that time. He was more than the hot officer. He was gentle, sweet, funny, and kind Zade. He was also no-nonsense, serious, and law-abiding Zade, and I fell in love with all of him. The end. Have you ever had a crush on someone who is in a position of authority? Thanks for watching. Consider liking and subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force, and stay wholesome.